Commander Jake Sullivan stared at the giant glowing map floating in the middle of the ship's control room. The blue light from the hologram made his face look pale as he studied every detail. Something was very wrong with this map, and he could not figure out what it was. The Terra Nova had been traveling through space for 6 months now. It was humanity's newest and biggest exploration ship. Jake and his crew were the first humans to meet with the Galactic Federation. This was supposed to be the most important day in human history. First contact with dozens of alien races who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Ambassador Kethvar from the Zephyrian species had given them this map as a welcome gift. The tall, thin alien with see-through skin had seemed proud when he presented it. He said it showed every known civilization in the galaxy, every trade route, every safe passage between the stars. It was supposed to help humans find their place in the bigger universe. But Jake saw the problem right away. The map showed thousands upon thousands of star systems. Bright colors marked different alien empires. Red zones showed where the warlike Krathari lived. Golden areas belonged to the trader species called Velians. Blue regions marked the territory of the Smart Nexus Collective who spent all their time learning and building libraries. The map was beautiful and detailed. It showed 3 whole spiral arms of the galaxy. But at the edges of human space, everything just stopped. Not like there was empty space beyond. Not like it was marked as dangerous or unknown. It just ended, like someone had taken scissors and cut away part of the universe. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes walked up beside Jake. She was the ship's expert on alien cultures and had spent years studying how different species lived and worked. Lisa had been looking at the same map for hours, and her face showed the same confusion Jake felt. "This doesn't make sense," Lisa said quietly. "I've seen star charts from a dozen different species. None of them just end like this. There should be marks for unexplored space or danger zones or something." Jake nodded. "It's like they pretend the rest of the galaxy doesn't exist." Behind them, Captain Alex Morgan was talking with some of the alien diplomats. Alex had been exploring space longer than anyone else on the crew. He had pushed humanity's borders farther than any other captain. Jake could see that Alex was getting frustrated with the aliens' answers to his questions. Dr. Sam Pierce sat at his computer station running scans of the empty areas on the map. Sam was their science officer, and he understood space better than anyone. His instruments could detect things millions of miles away. What he was finding made no sense at all. "Commander," Sam called out, "you need to see this." Jake and Lisa walked over to Sam's station. The doctor's screen showed readings from their long-range sensors. Instead of empty space where the map showed nothing, the sensors detected hundreds of star systems. Some of them showed signs of technology, ships moving between planets, energy signatures that meant someone was building things. "There are civilizations out there," Sam said, pointing at his screen. "Lots of them. But according to this map, they don't exist," Lisa frowned. "Maybe their information is just old. Maps take time to update." "No." Sam shook his head. "I'm picking up signals that are only a few days old. Someone is actively trying to hide these areas." Jake looked back at the alien diplomats. Ambassador Kethvar was talking with Captain Morgan, but the alien's skin was changing color. Jake had learned that meant Kethvar was nervous or upset about something. The other aliens in the room seemed tense too. "I'm going to ask them directly," Jake decided. He walked over to where Captain Morgan stood with the aliens. There were 5 different species represented. Besides Kethvar, there was a big, furry creature from the Ursian Republic, a small, floating, jellyfish-like being from the Ethereal Collective, a metal robot from the Synthetic Union, and a lizard person from the Reptilian Commonwealth. "Ambassador Kethvar," Jake said politely, "we have some questions about your map." The alien's skin shifted to a darker shade. "Of course, Commander Sullivan. How may we help?" "Why are there blank areas around human space? Our sensors show star systems in those regions, but your map shows nothing." The room went very quiet. All the aliens looked at each other. The furry Ursian made a low growling sound. The floating jellyfish creature pulsed with dim light. Even the robot seemed to process this question longer than normal. Some boundaries are best left unquestioned, Commander, HFY finally said. His voice shook slightly. The Federation has learned wisdom through experience. Captain Morgan stepped forward. What kind of experience? Are those areas dangerous? Not dangerous in the way you might think, the lizard diplomat said carefully. But there are regions where it is better not to go. Better not to ask about. Jake felt his curiosity growing stronger. In all his years of space exploration, he had never met aliens who were afraid to explore. Every species he had heard about loved to discover new things and visit new places. Fear was not something he expected from civilizations that had been traveling between stars for millennia. Are there hostile species in those areas? Lisa asked. The robot spoke in its mechanical voice. The regions beyond your space are not discussed in Federation meetings. This has been policy for a very long time. How long? Jake pressed. Again, the aliens looked at each other nervously. The floating jellyfish creature spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Since before most of our civilizations reached the stars, it is tradition. Dr. Pierce had been listening while continuing to scan the hidden regions. He walked over with his portable scanner showing new readings. I'm detecting artificial structures out there, he announced. Big ones. Some of them are older than anything we've found in explored space. The aliens went completely silent. Jake could see fear in their eyes. Real, deep fear that made no sense. These were species that controlled entire star systems. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They had technology humans were only beginning to understand. What could possibly scare them so much? HFY's skin was now almost black with stress. Perhaps it would be best to focus on the areas that are well known and safe. There is much to explore in Federation space. But Jake was not satisfied. Something big was being hidden from humanity, and he intended to find out what. He looked at Captain Morgan, who nodded slightly. They were thinking the same thing. We appreciate the map and your hospitality, Captain Morgan said diplomatically. But humans have always been curious about the unknown. We'll need to do our own exploration. The lizard diplomat hissed softly. That would not be advised. Are you forbidding us from exploring? Jake asked directly. No, HFY said quickly. The Federation does not restrict member species from traveling where they choose, but we strongly recommend staying within mapped territories. After the meeting ended and the aliens returned to their ships, Jake gathered his senior officers in the conference room. The Terra Nova was equipped for long-range exploration. They had enough supplies for months of travel, and Jake was determined to find out what lay beyond the edges of that incomplete map. Something scared these species badly enough that they won't even talk about entire regions of space, he told his team. Regions that happen to surround human territory. Could be a coincidence, Lisa suggested, but she did not sound convinced. Sensors don't lie, Dr. Pierce said. There are active civilizations in those blank zones, advanced ones. The question is why every other species pretends they don't exist. Captain Morgan made the decision. We're going to take a look, carefully and quietly. If there's something out there that affects human space, we need to know what it is. Jake felt excitement and worry at the same time. They were about to cross a line that apparently no one in the galaxy was willing to cross. Whatever they found on the other side might change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. 3 weeks after the Terra Nova returned to Earth, reports started coming in from across human space. Commander Jake Sullivan sat in his office at the Space Command headquarters reading file after file of strange discoveries. Each report made the mystery deeper and more troubling. Captain Maya Rodriguez had sent the first report from the Outer Rim. Her research ship Horizon had been mapping new star systems when she noticed the same problem with alien star charts. Every map given to humans by different species showed the same blank areas. It was not just the Zephyrians. Every single alien race was hiding the same regions of space. Maya had tried to buy more detailed maps from Velian traders. The Velians were known throughout the galaxy for selling anything to anyone if the price was right. But when she asked, About the blank zones, the traders became nervous and refused to talk. They offered to sell her maps of distant galaxies instead, but would not discuss the areas near human space. Commander Ben Clark sent an even more disturbing report from the Kepler defense platform. Ben was in charge of watching the borders of human territory. His job was to track every ship that came near human space. What he found was a pattern that made no sense. Alien ships would approach the boundaries of human space, but they never came close. They would slow down when they got within a few light years of human colonies. Then they would turn on all their scanners and sensors. They would sit there for hours, sometimes days, just watching and scanning. Finally, they would turn around and leave the same way they came. Ben had watched this happen dozens of times. The aliens were not trying to invade or attack. They were not exploring or looking for resources. They were acting like animals checking for predators before entering a dangerous area. They were afraid of something in human space, but they would not say what. Intelligence Officer Kelly Wright had been monitoring alien communications for months. Kelly was good at her job because she could speak several alien languages and understand their codes. What she found in their messages was even stranger than the maps. The aliens used special words when they talked about human space. They called it the Silence Makers and the Dark Territory. These phrases showed up in military messages, trade communications, and even normal conversations between alien civilians. Every time someone mentioned these words, others would tell them to be quiet or change the subject. Kelly had recorded thousands of conversations. The aliens were clearly scared of something, but they would never say what. They acted like talking about it might make something terrible happen. Some of the messages included what looked like prayers or protective spells, as if the aliens thought they needed magical protection just from thinking about human space. Dr. Amy Foster at the Lunar Research Institute made a discovery that changed everything. Amy was an archaeologist who studied old ruins and artifacts. She had been examining ancient sites throughout human space when she found something impossible. The artifacts were millions of years old, but they were not made by any known alien species. Amy had studied the technology of dozens of galactic civilizations. She knew their building styles, their materials, their way of making tools and weapons. These artifacts were different. They used science that seemed to break the normal rules of physics. Some of the artifacts could store energy in ways that should not be possible. Others seemed to bend space and time around them. Amy found pieces of technology that were more advanced than anything humans or aliens had today, but they were found buried in the ground of human worlds in places where humans had lived for thousands of years. The strangest part was that human engineers could understand the artifacts. When Amy showed them to human scientists, they instinctively knew how the technology worked. They could not explain how they knew, but they could operate devices that were millions of years more advanced than anything humans had built. General Matt Turner was receiving classified reports from military bases throughout human space. Every report told the same story. Ancient installations were being found on human worlds. Most of them were buried deep underground or hidden in remote areas. The installations were clearly artificial, but they were older than human civilization. What worried General Turner most was that the installations were not completely dead. They had power sources that still worked after millions of years. Some of them were sending out signals that could not be detected by normal equipment. The signals were not random. They followed mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence. Military engineers who examined the installations reported strange experiences. They would walk into a room and somehow know exactly how to operate controls they had never seen before. They could read symbols in languages that did not exist. They understood the purpose of machines that used unknown scientific principles. Back on the Terra Nova, Dr. Sam Pierce was analyzing all the data from across human space. Sam was trying to find connections between the different discoveries. What he found was a pattern that made his hands shake as he typed his report. Every human world had these ancient artifacts. Every human colony had hidden installations. Every border of human space was being watched by nervous aliens who would not explain why. The conclusion was impossible to believe. But Sam could not find any other explanation. Humans were not the first intelligent species to live in this part of the galaxy. Someone else had been here before. Someone who had technology that was millions of years ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Someone who had left behind machines that only humans could understand and operate. Commander Jake Sullivan called a meeting of all the senior officers who had been investigating the mystery. They gathered in a secure conference room aboard the Terra Nova. The ship was still in orbit around Earth, but Jake was already planning their next mission. "We have a problem," Jake began. "Actually, we have several problems, and they are all connected." He activated a holographic display that showed all the reports they had gathered. Maps with blank zones, alien ships that would not enter human space, ancient artifacts that predated known history, underground installations that were still active after millions of years. "The aliens are not just afraid of us," Jake continued. "They are afraid of our space. They are afraid of something that was here before us, something that left behind technology we can somehow understand." Captain Alex Morgan had been studying the same data. "The question is, what happened to whoever was here before? Did they leave? Did they die out? Or are they still here somehow?" Dr. Pierce had been running calculations on his computer. Based on the age of the artifacts and the power signatures from the installations, whoever built this technology was active in this area of space for millions of years. Then, about 50,000 years ago, all activity stopped. "That's right, around when humans started developing on Earth," Lisa Barnes pointed out. "Could be a coincidence. Or it could be connected," Jake said. "Maybe whoever was here before had something to do with human development. Maybe that's why we can understand their technology." General Turner had been listening to the discussion with growing concern. If there was a civilization that advanced in our space, what happened to them? And why are the aliens still afraid of them after all this time? Kelly Wright had been analyzing more alien communications. "I've been tracking the frequency of their coded messages about human space. The messages are increasing. Ever since we started exploring and asking questions, the aliens have been talking about us more and more. They are getting more nervous, not less. They know something we don't," Jake concluded. "Something about our history, our space, maybe even about us. And they are too scared to tell us what it is." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Humans had thought they were newcomers to the galaxy, young and inexperienced compared to the ancient alien civilizations. But the evidence suggested something very different. Jake made his decision. "We are going to cross the boundary. We are going to see what is in those blank zones on the map. Whatever is out there, whatever the aliens are afraid of, we need to find it. It could be dangerous," Captain Morgan warned. "Everything worth doing is dangerous," Jake replied. "Besides, if there really was an advanced civilization in our space before us, we might be the only ones who can safely investigate what they left behind." The Terra Nova began preparing for a journey into the unknown regions of space, a journey that would take them beyond the edges of every galactic map, into areas that every other species in the galaxy refused to explore. They had no idea what they would find there, but they were about to discover that the mystery was far bigger and more dangerous than any of them had imagined. The Terra Nova moved slowly toward the invisible line that marked the edge of known space. Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge watching the stars ahead. In a few minutes, they would cross into territory that no other species in the galaxy would enter. His crew was nervous, but they were also excited. They were about to become the first people to see what lay beyond the blank zones on every galactic map. Dr. Sam Pierce was monitoring all the ship's instruments. Everything looked normal so far. The stars ahead were just like the stars behind them. Space looked empty and peaceful, but Sam knew that looks could be deceiving in the vast darkness between worlds. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes sat at her station studying everything they knew about the forbidden zones. The aliens had been so scared that they would barely talk about these areas. Some alien species were known for being brave explorers who would go anywhere, but even they stayed away from the regions around human space. Captain Alex Morgan was in the engine room making sure everything was working perfectly. If something went wrong out here, they would be too far from help. No other ship would come looking for them in these forbidden areas. They were completely on their own. Navigator. Paul Rogers was plotting their course to a signal they had detected just beyond the boundary. It appeared to be some kind of space station or large structure. The signal was weak, but it was definitely artificial. Someone or something had built it, and it was still sending out a faint beacon. 30 seconds to boundary crossing, Paul announced. Jake felt his heart beating faster. They were about to make history. Either they would discover something amazing, or they would find out why every other species in the galaxy was too afraid to come here. All stations report ready, Jake said into his communicator. Engineering ready, came Captain Morgan's voice. Science station ready, Dr. Pierce confirmed. Communications ready, said Lieutenant Kate Murphy. Navigation ready, Paul Rogers added. 10 seconds, Paul counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boundary crossed. For a moment, nothing happened. The stars looked the same. The instruments showed normal readings. Jake started to think that maybe the aliens had been worried about nothing. Then everything changed at once. The first thing they noticed was the silence. All their long-range communications with Earth were cut off, not gradually fading like normal radio signals, but cut off completely as if someone had flipped a switch. Lieutenant Murphy tried every frequency and every type of signal. Nothing could reach back to human space. We're completely isolated, Murphy reported, worry clear in her voice. Dr. Pierce was staring at his instruments with confusion. These readings don't make sense. According to our position systems, we're in multiple locations at the same time. What do you mean? Jake asked. The navigation computers show us at coordinates that are thousands of light years apart from each other. All at the same time, it's like we exist in several different places in space. Paul Rogers was checking his star charts. The stars are wrong too. Some of these constellations don't match any known star patterns. It's like we're looking at a completely different part of the galaxy. Lisa Barnes was monitoring their life support systems. The strange thing is, we should be dead. The physics readings Dr. Pierce is getting should have torn our ship apart, but we're fine. Something is protecting us from the spatial distortions. Jake tried to understand what was happening. They had crossed an invisible line in space and suddenly found themselves in a place where the normal rules of the universe did not seem to apply. But they were still alive, and their ship was still working. Continue toward the signal source, Jake ordered. But be ready to turn back if things get worse. They flew deeper into the strange region of space. The artificial signal was getting stronger, but it was also getting more complex. What had seemed like a simple beacon was actually a complicated message with layers of information encoded in frequencies their equipment should not have been able to detect. Lieutenant Murphy was working on decoding the signal. Commander, this is impossible. We're receiving data on quantum frequencies that our receivers were never designed to handle, but somehow we're picking it up anyway. Can you understand what it's saying? Jake asked. Parts of it. The signal contains star charts, technical specifications, and what looks like historical records. But the timestamps are all wrong. Some of this data is marked as being millions of years old, but other parts have today's date. Dr. Pierce made another disturbing discovery. The energy readings in this area are off the charts. There are power sources out here that dwarf anything we've ever detected, but they're not natural. Someone built technology that can generate more energy than a star. As they got closer to the signal source, they could see it on their visual displays. It was definitely a space station, but it was huge. The structure was easily the size of a small moon. It was clearly artificial, with geometric shapes and surfaces that reflected light in patterns no natural object could create. The design is familiar somehow, Lisa observed. I can't place it, but I feel like I've seen this architecture before. Paul Rogers was running scans of the station. It's definitely abandoned. No life signs, no active power systems except for the beacon. But the construction materials are unlike anything in our databases. Take us closer, Jake decided. We need to see what's inside. As the Terra Nova approached the massive station, more details became visible. The structure was covered in symbols and markings that looked almost like writing, but it was not any language from the known galaxy. The symbols were arranged in patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles rather than linguistic ones. Dr. Pierce was studying the construction of the station. These building techniques are incredible. The materials are fused at the molecular level. This thing could probably survive the explosion of a star. How old is it? Jake asked. That's the weird part. The materials show signs of being extremely old, but they're also perfectly preserved. It's like time doesn't affect this station the same way it affects everything else. Lieutenant Murphy had been working on the beacon signal for hours. Finally, she made a breakthrough. Commander, I've decoded part of the message. You're not going to believe this. What does it say? It's a log entry, written in English, by someone calling themselves Captain John Mitchell of the Terran Exploration Corps. The bridge went completely silent. Terran meant human, but humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. There was no Terran Exploration Corps in human history. When was the log entry made? Jake asked quietly. Murphy checked her readings twice before answering. According to the timestamp, it was written at the exact moment we crossed into this zone. Today, just a few hours ago. Lisa Barnes felt a chill run down her spine. That's impossible. We're the first humans to come here. Are we? Dr. Pierce asked. He was staring at his instruments with a look of growing amazement. What if we're not the first humans in space? What if we're not even the first humans? Jake tried to process what they were discovering. A space station built with technology beyond anything in the galaxy. A beacon sending messages in English from someone who should not exist. Spatial distortions that should have killed them, but somehow protected them instead. Get us aboard that station, Jake ordered. We need to find out who Captain John Mitchell is and how he knew we were coming. The Terra Nova moved toward the docking bay of the ancient station. As they got closer, the docking bay opened automatically as if it recognized their ship. Lights came on inside the station, illuminating corridors and rooms that had been dark for who knows how long. The station is responding to our presence, Paul Rogers reported. It's like it was waiting for us. Or waiting for humans, Jake corrected. The question is, how did whoever built this know that humans would eventually come here? As they prepared to board the mysterious station, Jake realized they were about to find answers to questions that would change everything humans thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. The aliens had been right to be afraid, but they had been afraid of the wrong thing. They were not afraid of what was in this region of space. They were afraid of what it would reveal about humanity itself. The air inside the ancient station felt different from the recycled atmosphere of the Terra Nova. Commander Jake Sullivan breathed deeply as he stepped into the massive corridor. The air was clean and fresh, as if the station had been waiting, with perfect life support systems running for thousands of years. The walls were covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to shift and change when Jake was not focusing on them, but somehow he could understand what they meant. The symbols were giving directions, warnings, and information about the station's different sections. Dr. Sam Pierce was scanning everything with his portable instruments. The energy readings are incredible. This station is powered by something that converts matter directly into usable energy. The efficiency is perfect. No waste, no heat, nothing but pure power. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes was studying the architecture around them. The corridors were built for human-sized beings, but the design was more advanced than anything humans had ever built. The walls seemed to be made from a single piece of material with no joints or seams anywhere. This place was built by humans, Lisa said with certainty. The proportions, the design elements, even the way the corridors branch off. This is human engineering, but centuries ahead of anything we can do now. Captain Alex Morgan was examining the construction materials. He had worked with every type of building material used in human space colonies, but this was different. The walls felt warm to the touch and seemed to respond to their presence. Lights would turn on automatically as they walked, and air would flow more freely when they needed to breathe. Navigator Paul Rogers was following the beacon signal deeper into the station. The signal was leading them toward what appeared to be a central control room. Along the way, they passed rooms full of equipment that looked familiar, but was far more advanced than anything they had seen before. "Look at this," Dr. Pierce called, out from one of the side rooms. He was standing in front of a wall covered with star charts. But these were not like any star charts they had ever seen. They showed the entire galaxy from perspectives that should have been impossible to achieve. Jake studied the charts and felt his mind reeling. These show star positions from millions of years ago, and millions of years in the future. How could anyone map the movement of stars across that much time? Maybe they didn't map it, Lisa suggested quietly. Maybe they lived through it. The idea was too big to fully understand. Lisa was suggesting that whoever built this station had existed for millions of years, long enough to watch stars be born and die, long enough to see the galaxy itself change and evolve. They continued toward the central control room. Along the way, they found libraries full of information stored in formats they could somehow read. The data covered every aspect of science, technology, and philosophy. There were star charts for galaxies humans had never heard of, technical manuals for machines that could reshape reality itself. Lieutenant Kate Murphy was monitoring their communications equipment. Even though they could not reach Earth, she was picking up signals from within the station itself. There are active computer systems throughout this place. They're running programs that have been operating for millions of years without stopping. What kind of programs? Jake asked. Monitoring systems. They're watching every star system in the galaxy. They know the location of every ship, every planet, every living being. It's like someone has been keeping track of everything that happens in the universe. Dr. Pierce made another discovery in one of the technical rooms. He found manufacturing equipment that could build anything from pure energy. The machines could take raw matter and reshape it into any form needed. With technology like this, building entire space stations would be as easy as thinking about them. This explains how they built something this big, Pierce said. They didn't need to mine materials or transport them here. They could just create whatever they needed directly from energy. They finally reached the central control room. It was a vast chamber filled with displays showing every part of the galaxy. Stars, planets, and civilizations were marked with different colors and symbols. Jake could see human space clearly marked, but so were thousands of other areas that did not appear on any galactic map. In the center of the room was a computer terminal that looked like it was designed for human hands. The interface was intuitive, as if Jake had been using it his entire life. When he touched the controls, information began flowing across the displays faster than he could read. The station's main computer is responding to us, Jake announced. It recognizes human DNA patterns. We're authorized to access everything. Lisa Barnes was studying the historical records that appeared on one of the displays. What she found changed everything they thought they knew about human history. Jake, you need to see this. These records show that humans didn't evolve on Earth. What do you mean? According to this, humans built an empire that covered half the galaxy. We had technology that could control time itself. We could exist in multiple time periods simultaneously. We were the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Morgan was reading military records on another display. It says here that every other species in the galaxy was part of our empire. We didn't conquer them through war. We were so advanced that they joined us willingly. We brought peace and prosperity to the entire galaxy. Dr. Pierce found scientific records that explained how this was possible. They achieved something called temporal sovereignty. They could exist outside the normal flow of time. They could see the past and future as clearly as the present. They could even change events that had already happened. Jake was trying to understand the implications. If humans were that advanced, what happened to us? Why are we back to being a single-planet species? The answer came from a personal log file recorded by the original Captain John Mitchell. Jake activated the recording and a holographic figure appeared in front of them. The man looked human, but his eyes held wisdom that seemed infinite. If you are watching this, the hologram said, then humanity has reached the point where they are ready to remember who they really are. My name is John Mitchell, and I am you, Jake Sullivan, from a previous cycle of galactic history. Jake felt like the universe was spinning around him. The hologram continued speaking. We discovered that our power was too great. We could control everything, change anything, reshape reality itself. But power like that comes with a terrible price. We began to lose our humanity. We became gods, but we stopped being human. So we made a choice. We created a temporal loop that would reset our civilization. We would give up our power and start over as a simple species on a single world. But we left safeguards to ensure our successors would be protected until they were ready to choose their own path. Lisa Barnes understood first. The aliens aren't afraid of what's in this region of space. They're afraid of us. They remember what humans were capable of when we had this technology. The archaeological sites, the ancient installations, the technology that only humans can understand, Dr. Pierce added. We left all of that for ourselves, for this version of humanity to find when we were ready. Captain Morgan was reading more military records. According to this, every alien civilization has been waiting and watching human space. They know exactly who we are and what we're capable of becoming. They're terrified that we'll remember our true nature. The hologram of John Mitchell spoke again. The choice we made before you must make again. You can activate the temporal reset and return to being a simple species. Or you can reclaim your heritage and become what humanity was always meant to be. But know this, the hologram warned. If you choose to remember, if you choose to reclaim our technology and our power, the galaxy will never be the same. Every other species will have to decide whether to serve humanity again or oppose us. Jake looked around at his crew. They were no longer just explorers who had stumbled onto a mystery. They were the representatives of humanity at the most important moment in galactic history. Their choice would determine whether humans remained a minor species or reclaimed their position as the rulers of the galaxy. The ancient technology was already responding to their presence. Systems throughout human space were activating. The sites? Aliens throughout the galaxy were probably preparing for humanity's return to power. Everything depended on what Jake and his crew decided to do next. Commander Jake Sullivan stood in the ancient control room, staring at displays that showed the entire galaxy waiting for his decision. Around him, his crew was reading through millions of years of human history that had been hidden from them. The weight of what they had discovered was almost too much to bear. Dr. Sam Pierce was monitoring energy readings from across human space. Jake, something is happening. The ancient installations we found on human worlds are all activating at the same time. Power levels are rising to levels I've never seen before. Lieutenant Kate Murphy was trying to re-establish contact with Earth, but the signals she was receiving were not from their own time. I'm picking up communications from human colonies that don't exist yet, and messages from colonies that were destroyed millions of years ago. It's like time itself is breaking down. Captain Alex Morgan was studying the military records on the station's computers. What he found made him understand why every alien species in the galaxy was terrified. The weapon systems that humanity built in the past could destroy not just planets or star systems, but entire timelines. We could erase species from history itself. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barnes had been reading the philosophical records left by the previous human civilization. They didn't just rule the galaxy through military power. They became something beyond normal understanding. They could exist in multiple realities at the same time. They could see every possible future and choose which one would happen. Navigator. Paul Rogers was watching the star charts on the displays. The charts were changing in real time, showing him alternate versions of galactic history. In some timelines, humans never left Earth. In others, they conquered everything. In still others, they transcended physical existence entirely. The temporal safeguards are breaking down, Paul reported. Our presence here is triggering systems that have been dormant for millions of years. Soon we won't be able to go back to the way things were, even if we wanted to. Jake looked at the hologram of John Mitchell, his previous self from an earlier cycle of history. How long do we have to decide? Not long, the hologram replied. The moment you entered this station, you began the awakening process. Ancient defense networks throughout human space are coming online. The alien civilizations are detecting the power increases. They know that humanity is remembering. Dr. Pierce checked his instruments again. The Kepler defense platform just sent an automated message. Commander Clark reports that alien fleets are retreating to their home systems throughout the galaxy. They're preparing for something big. Through the station's communication systems, they could monitor alien transmissions across the galaxy. Lieutenant Murphy translated some of the messages. The aliens were sending what appeared to be surrender signals to human space. They were not preparing to fight. They were preparing to submit. They remember us, Lisa realized. Even after millions of years, they remember what it was like when humans ruled the galaxy. They're ready to accept our authority again. But Jake was not sure that was what he wanted. He had grown up believing that humans were just one species among many in a vast galaxy. The idea of ruling over all other forms of life seemed wrong somehow. Captain Morgan was reading more of the historical records. It says here that the previous human civilization tried to be benevolent rulers. They brought peace, prosperity, and technological advancement to every species they encountered. They ended wars, cured diseases, and solved problems that had existed for millions of years. But they also took away freedom, Jake pointed out. If humans controlled everything, then no other species could make their own choices. The hologram of John Mitchell nodded sadly. That was the problem we faced. We had the power to make the galaxy perfect, but perfection achieved through control is not really perfection at all. We realized that our very existence was preventing other species from growing and developing on their own. Dr. Pierce made another disturbing discovery. The temporal reset system is still active. We could choose to forget again, to return humanity to being a single-world species. But each reset makes us weaker. The records show that we've already reset our history several times. If we do it again, we might not be able to reach this level of advancement ever again. Jake felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. He was not just choosing for himself or his crew. He was choosing for all of humanity, and for every other species in the galaxy. Whatever decision he made would echo through millions of years of future history. Lieutenant Murphy reported more incoming signals. I'm receiving messages from human colonies throughout our space. The ancient technology is activating everywhere. People are starting to remember things they never learned. Engineers are understanding machines they never studied. It's like the collective memory of our species is awakening. On Earth, General Matt Turner was dealing with the same phenomenon. Ancient installations that had been hidden for thousands of years were rising from the ground. Technology that had been dormant was coming to life. Humans everywhere were experiencing flashes of memory from their species' forgotten past. Dr. Amy Foster at the Lunar Research Institute was watching as artifacts throughout human space began responding to signals from the station. The devices were connecting to each other, forming a network that spanned all of human territory. It was as if the entire region of space was becoming one giant machine. We're running out of time, Captain Morgan said. If we're going to make a choice, we need to make it now. Jake looked around at his crew. These people had trusted him to lead them into the unknown. Now they were looking to him to make the most important decision in galactic history. What do you think we should do? Jake asked them. Dr. Pierce spoke first. The technology we're inheriting could solve every problem facing humanity. We could eliminate disease, poverty, and war. We could explore the entire universe. We could become immortal. But at what cost? Lisa asked. The records show that the previous human civilization lost something important when they became so powerful. They stopped being human in any meaningful sense. Captain Morgan had a different perspective. Maybe that's not necessarily bad. Maybe becoming something greater than human is the next step in our evolution. Paul Rogers was watching the displays showing alternate timelines. In most of the futures I can see, choosing power leads to stagnation. Choosing to remain as we are leads to extinction. But there are a few timelines where humanity finds a middle path. Jake studied the controls in front of him. One set of switches would activate the full power of the ancient human civilization. Another would reset their history once again. But there was a third option that John Mitchell had not mentioned. What if we don't choose either option? Jake asked the hologram. What if we take partial control of the technology but don't fully awaken the old systems? The hologram smiled. You are thinking like the leader humanity needs. Yes, there is a third path. You can accept the knowledge and some of the technology, but leave the most dangerous systems dormant. Humanity can advance gradually, learning wisdom along with power. Jake made his decision. He began activating specific systems throughout the network while leaving others dormant. Ancient libraries opened their knowledge to human scientists. Medical technology began healing diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Transportation systems allowed faster travel between worlds, but the weapons that could destroy timelines remained locked. The machines that could control other species stayed dormant. The technology that could make humans into gods was kept safely sealed. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched as human space transformed. They saw the ancient installations activate, but they also saw that humanity was choosing restraint. The humans were becoming more advanced, but they were not becoming the terrible rulers they had once been. Ambassador Kethavar sent a message from the Zephyrian homeworld. "We welcome humanity's return to the galactic community. Perhaps this time we can work together as equals rather than as rulers and subjects." Jake smiled as he read the message. Humanity had found a way to reclaim their heritage without losing their humanity. They would grow into their power gradually, learning wisdom as they gained strength. The galactic map would need to be redrawn. The blank zones around human space would be filled in with new discoveries and new possibilities. But this time, the map would show not human dominance but human partnership with the other species of the galaxy. The mystery was solved, but the real adventure was just beginning.